So I don't really like running. Okay. And I'm pretty sure anybody who's seen me from the chin down is like, yeah, no surprise, bud. But running is an exercise where nobody smiles while they're doing it, right? Like that's not a good time. Other than like maybe the first 15 to 20 seconds because you get tired immediately. However, riding a bicycle, I will say, is an exercise that I've seen a lot of people smile while they're doing. Added bonus is that anytime when you read in the paper that a dead body was found in the park, it was usually found by a runner. And it's typically not a cyclist, also. And me personally, I tend to avoid finding dead bodies in general, which is why you'll find me on a bike much more frequently than you will find me running.
TJ, we went live.
Noted.
Welcome, everybody. This is episode 156 of Sawdust Talk, and we are joined tonight with our friend from Texas Woodworking Festival, Austin Waldo, and we are going to get into him in just a moment. TJ is going to run through our sponsors real quick, and then we will get on to the show.
Perfect. First sponsor every week is Hannah and the team over at Surf Prep Sanding Systems. I recently had a perfectly good use for using my 6-inch random orbit sander as I was smoothing out the curves and the grain on an arcade machine that I am building for my son. And I got to tell you, there are other random orbit sanders on the market, but they don't have the dust collection like this thing does. It is a dream and a wonder. And if you don't have a surf prep sander, but you are looking for a really good, long-lasting abrasive, you also need to check out Surf Prep's website for that as well. It's a fantastic product. And if you're going to buy some to try it out, use coupon code Sawdust Talk to save yourself a little bit of money. Also, we have merchandise available over at caseybombshell.com. It's a wonderful website to go check out Layla's scroll saw art, but she also hosts us over there and makes sure that anybody who wants a lovely, luxurious, soft to the skin, sublimated, water-based, delightful piece of Sawdust Talk merchandise, you can go over there and you can get that for yourself. That's over at caseybombshell.com. We also need to talk briefly about Makers for St. Jude. We've got a bit of a wonderful deadline for tonight, Jessie. Is it tonight the deadline? Are we going to push it till midnight to let any stragglers hop on and donate?
Tonight is the deadline, so today is actually truly the last day.
Perfect. We partnered with Harvey Industries to have them donate a killer 3-horsepower bandsaw. The raffle has raised $4,200 to fight childhood cancer because we love St. Jude and we love the makers and the companies who are hitching their wagon to this awesome thing. If you want to get involved because maybe you've got some extra work lying around or you've got a piece that you think would auction or raffle off really well, but you don't want to build a website and you don't want to deal with all the hassle, reach out to me or Jessie or Mike or even those guys over at that other 3-letter acronym podcast. They can help you get a website set up and we'll get you a part of something awesome. You may have also seen in your reels or your Instagram stories today that we are kicking off our spring maker bonanza. And if you participate and get an auction up during this month, May, and until the end of June, I believe, you will also be entered into a drawing for luxurious prizes, the number of which is astounding. Everybody is going to walk away with goodies. You really need to get involved, be a part of something awesome, and let the cool stuff that you make do cool stuff for people who need help. And so that's why we love Makers for St. Jude. There's also a Patreon for this podcast, free level coming eventually. But if you want to sponsor this podcast for the low price of $5 a month, that's less than an iced tea at an Arby's in size large, which is absolutely baffling to me at this point. You can help Jessie and I keep our gear looking nice, keep us into going to maker meetups and giving you all high fives and meeting you in person. And that's at Patreon/Sawdust Talk. Correct, Jessie?
Yes.
Wonderful. What I miss?
Nothing. we're gonna shoot over to Austin here.
Perfect.
And Austin, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the school and Texas Woodworking Festival. Like, let's just get into it.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Everything.
How did you end up where you
Everything.
are in the universe today? How did it happen?
That's a good question. Well, I'm originally from Kansas. I grew up there and kind of the woodworking itch from my grandfather, and it was much more on the kind of handyman side. And he was a wood turner when older and retired, and so I kind of got that initial start from him. And then it was really just a function of paying the bills from high school and college, and having a part-time job as a carpenter or a handyman, kind of fixing things here and there. And that's really transformed into trim carpentry to find furniture. So, been a hobbyist woodworker for 20 years or so, and then really professional for 7 or 8 to some extent. But in marketing. So I did that professionally for a number of different companies, and abroad, and then lived back in Kansas and then Colorado, and then moved to Austin with my now wife. And when I had first come here, I was actually pretty disappointed with found in Austin. And so the very first step of all these kind of woodworking communities that I'm now a part of, it actually came out of a woodworking club. So the woodworking club that I with, and then ended up meeting some other woodworkers, drinking some beers, or just chatting, and kind of, why isn't there a woodworking club that does this? Like, what do you mean? Like, that drinks beer and talks about woodworking. So we ended up starting a working club about almost 10 years ago at this point, that just drinks beer and talks about woodworking. And you can bring some tabletop show and tell. And then we do some presentations at the Austin School of Furniture, where if there's a teacher in town, then we'll do something more specific. But it really is a drinking club with a woodworking program. We get together and just talk about all the podcasts everybody's saying and we're making, and kind of exchange ideas and projects and things like that, and use it as a launching pad for those that are moving, that want to get tapped into that woodworking community. And from that club came the need for a little bit more structured education. And so I started the Austin School of Furniture in 2018, and grew from a tiny room of a space with just a couple benches and some hand tools to now we've got a nice air-conditioned 5,000 square foot shop that we can run classes out of, and have lots of hand tools and lots of machines that students can use, and can make some really nice furniture and learn all about woodworking. And being that I like to start things, then about 6 years ago or so, probably 7 at this point, started Texas Woodworking Festival. And that was kind of a mixture of the woodworking club and the school. But the idea of the Woodworking Festival originally was that my club didn't know that there were other woodworking clubs in Austin, and those other woodworking clubs tend to skew towards an older population that weren't as involved on social media and didn't really get out of their bubble of wood turners or wood carvers or whatever that the niche club was. So we tried to host a club meeting for all in kind of the Central Texas area. I think only one other club ended up coming, but we had a lumberyard that came. We had a tool company that came. We had a makerspace that came. And we ended up maxing out the brewery that we held this event at. And so we kind of realized that there was definitely a need for, I don't really like to use the word conference or convention because I don't really see it as that, but a structured event of tool exhibitors and education, kind of all packed into one weekend. which is kind of now grown to being held at the Palmer Event Center and is now the Texas Woodworking Festival.
So you're going on 6 years now?
I'd have to think about it because we the COVID time we kind of did every 14 months or something like that, where we skipped a couple times.
Right.
But I think this is our 6th time, but it's for 7 or 8 years.
Okay. Texas Woodworking Festival 6.0.
There you go.
Very cool. So you remarked a little bit about furniture making, and after doing a couple of quick laps around your Instagram presence, you have a very well photographed portfolio of furniture hidden under, was it Waldo Furniture?
Yeah, my last name Waldo
Furniture Company. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that people might encounter over there? There's a gorgeous chair and a couple of tables with some sort of pattern base work to them. I mean, that's all really neat looking stuff.
Yeah. I like to do a mixture of spec work and commit work, and occasionally I'll get to do an article for different magazines where I might be able to design a spec piece and then actually get paid for it. So depending on what the particular project is, I'll get to design something that the client has a need for, but also is something that challenges me. So that's always been something that I have tried to do, is to incorporate a particular skill or something new in every project that I've never done. And, if it's, so not to say that I wouldn't make something that I've made before, but I might try it a different way or try to improve myself as a furniture maker through the project.
I think that's awesome. And with the school, I mean, how did the school come about? And what does that look like? I mean, do you have a ton of students? Like, do people come and like rent space, or what does that look like?
Yeah. It kind of came through that club and evolved in terms of the offerings that we have. So, at this point, we have everything from a short kind of 2-hour, I've never touched a tool, make a birdhouse class. I'd actually call them woodworking classes for non-woodworkers. So I want to make a garden planter and I've never touched any tool, or I want to make something for a friend or a significant other, all the way to much, much longer multi-day intensive classes where you're making, a lounge chair in 7 days with a instructor that's being flown in for that specific class. So really anything in between there, we are offering in some way. So a beginner to advanced class, short to long, different time formats. Everybody has a different work situation. So sometimes they're evenings, sometimes they're weekends, sometimes during the day.
So do you have like famous influencers that fly in to teach these classes? And can you name drop some?
It depends on what you mean by influencers. I think there's definitely a debate in fine furniture whether you can, if there's an influencer and there's a fine furniture maker, and then there are those people that are both. But generally is the fine furniture maker. So they might not have any social media at all. Sometimes they do have a big following, but we're more focused on their furniture making ability and their instruction, which is, you learn really quickly that a good furniture maker does not mean that they're a good teacher. And
for sure,
a good teacher really also a good furniture maker. So you one and not the other, but really what we're looking for is a really good teacher and a really good furniture maker.
Makes sense. Yep.
Yeah. If they have a big following, that's just a plus. It definitely helps to sell the class.
Well, and it brings people in, right? Yeah. So, I mean, people are like, oh my gosh, so-and-so is going to teach this class. Like, we need to go to Austin and do this class. So it makes sense.
It definitely broadens the reach of the class of who sees it and brings in new people that might have never heard of the school before.
Yeah.
So you obviously have a handful of tool brands that like to represent at this Texas Woodworking Festival also. Um, I can't expect you to recite every single one of them off the top of your head, but if you can, that would be astounding to me. Um, that's probably because I have the memory of a goldfish these days. But I think last year Festool had a pretty big presence out there for you guys. It was a sizable tent that they had set up. Is that correct? Am I thinking of the right event?
There's no tent. Festool, I love Festool, but they have never participated as Festool. They have been a retailer, either Woodcraft or Texas Toolcraft, than having their products there. But we would definitely love to have Festool there. I've talked with their team several times, but they, there's a whole kind of behind the scenes complexity that I had to learn of tool manufacturers and retailers and that whole relationship and how it then affects a woodworking event. So when you get to really big tool brands, sometimes they have a contract and they can't necessarily sell their own tools at these events. They have to go through a retailer, or they have a marketing company that does that for them, or they feel like it unfairly promotes a particular region of retailers. So that's definitely been a area that we have had to navigate and learn about. But I would love to see a much bigger presence from Festool, as I love their tools.
Well, and that's a thing too, is when you do go to events, maker events and stuff, where it's more of like a festival kind of thing, most brands don't show up and sell their product, right? You're asking their representatives to come and be at your event and meet people. And that's kind of, hoping that they can sell some product after the event.
Yeah. And, that's, we welcome people to sell their tools, but it's, then there's the whole thing of, well, you have to have a license to collect sales tax in every state. And so when you start to do events in other states, that gets really complex. But we like our show that you can do a lot of marketing as a tool company. You can get your hands on the tools, ask questions there. And then we definitely prefer if they can sell tools and machines. That's great. The selling of the large floor models is a little bit difficult in the middle of the show, but the small stuff, it's great to be able to walk away with some great power tools and hand tools. We have a lot of hand tool companies that are coming this year, so that's always exciting.
Okay, but you also didn't answer TJ's question, because he asked, like, who are some of the people going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, I probably could, given enough time, I could probably list them all, but there'll be prep that you had mentioned. They always come, and then Onefinity with the CNCs, and then there's the hand tool companies. Yeah, there you go, with Lee Nelson and Badass. Make some really cool stuff. There's a new Handis that they're doing a Kickstarter, and they're hoping to launch at the show. So that I always like to see new products and new things. We don't want necessarily companies there all the time. And who else? We're talking to a couple workwear companies. They haven't officially signed on, but we want to make sure that sweet clothing while they're woodworking. The different types of finish companies that always come. We always have local lumber yards and some of the local retailers that will also come, like the Woodcrafts and Rocklers. And then, Fine Woodworking, which is now active interest media groups, including Woodsmith and all those. They're always there. And then sponsor is Jonathan Katz-Moses through his tool. He has a whole bunch of really kind of interesting brands that he's bringing under that umbrella, different tool makers. So he'll have his tools there, and then that ends up usually bringing in some fun influencers to the event. This year in particular, we have a whole content creator track, which is a new component of the show.
Yeah. Well, Katz-Moses, like, that's like a very renowned name that everybody knows.
Yeah, he's really good at reaching into my wallet too, man. When his stuff goes on sale, oh my God. And
Yeah, he's got a
I mean,
new
if you don't know
wall
Cat
system.
Moses, what's going on?
Yeah. The new wall system looks good. I was thinking, it's like, that school could probably use some more organization that might be helpful.
yeah, I know he had a draw knife that was on like fire sale a couple of months ago, and I was like, oh man. I peel bark occasionally. I usually just turn it away or, hit it with a hammer because it's dry. But I was like, you know what? Daddy needs a draw knife. And yeah, it was like, he got me. And then he's hustling some really, really fancy looking chisels recently in some of his ads. And it's like, man, I think I made it all the way to the checkout. And then I was like, no, bad TJ,
Yeah.
save your money.
Those chisels are from Zen Wu. So there's a guy named Luke that comes to the show. He's fortunately not coming this year. I believe he's finishing his PhD. So crazy smart guy, really, really nice, and makes those chisels. And I've seen him, used them in person. They're amazing. So the chisels will be there via Cat's Moses. But then I think once Luke finishes his PhD, then he'll come back the next year.
Okay, I can literally hear my credit card smoking in the other room as you describe them thusly. I hope you're happy with yourself.
Nope, thanks. Don't worry. But they're just good tools.
The thing that I love though too is like Jonathan Katz Moses is the nicest guy. Like he is such a good dude. So I love like having these events and having people like him come to them because you get to meet that person that you're like, oh my gosh, it's like J. Katz Moses, like, oh my gosh. But you get to meet them in person and they're a person and they're actually pretty cool. I mean, most of them are pretty cool. I can't speak for everybody, but he's such an awesome guy.
Yeah, and that's a big kind of component of the Texas Woodworking Festival and what I like to do in everything I do, which is create that kind of community. And you always hope as a event planner that you kind of get something going and then the ball rolls on its own. And so we want to kind of create a spot where everybody wants to come to meet the Jonathan Katz Moses of the world, even the non-influencers of just coming to meet your woodworking friends that you've kind of chit-chatted with online or in other avenues, and you have a spot you can come every year to the Texas Woodworking Festival, and you can get together and meet new woodworkers and hopefully have a really good time. We've had a big after party this year, so it'd be a blast.
Okay, I think now would be the perfect time to announce something.
The
Austin, do you take over?
Yeah, new components this year, which is we always have our education ticket, which includes access to the general admission floor and then all 20 of those classes. And then we have the whole Friday half-day content creator track and the after. So I was hoping that we could put all those together and we could give away everything we have ticket right here on the show.
Yay!
That is awesome.
And we appreciate it so much. Yeah, so we will you guys will have to stay tuned. We will post on Sawdust Talk Instagram page all of the details for giveaway ticket for Texas Woodworking Festival.
You had mentioned earlier requiring people to post something. It just reminded me of a woodworking interview question that I asked kind of as a joke, but it has ended up becoming a really good question. So I'll let you decide on the official rules of who to follow and what to do. But I think if they have to make a comment, they have to respond with, if you were a woodworking tool, what kind would you be and why?
Oh, heck yeah. Let's do it.
I am a woodworking tool, says my wife.
Exactly. So the if you guys are familiar with Philip Morley, he's a furniture maker. He used to be down here in Texas, and he was a major part of the school and was kind of our lead instructor for a while. He's now the head instructor at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship in Maine. And we did an icebreaker in an intensive class where we asked that, and somebody kind of flipped it and asked Phil if Austin was a woodworking tool, what kind would he be? And he said he would be a router. He's multifunctional, can do everything. He's pretty small and mobile, and he's a little bit loud and annoying. It's like, okay, yeah,
All right.
that makes sense.
Rude.
All right.
That's hilarious though. That is so funny. I mean, TJ, I know you'd be like a lathe.
Yeah. I'd
But
be a
what would-
preposterous bull gouge.
What would I be?
You'd be a spiral upcut bit. Clean edges, super useful, polished to a shine, and high priced.
Maybe. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah, I like that.
Austin, I'll give you my answer of you after we get to spend some time together.
All right, sounds good.
Like, this is what two of you would be.
Yeah, it might change, after you know me for a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about what's on the bench for you. We talked a little bit in the pre-show about you having gotten a new commission piece this week, which is pretty exciting stuff. What's going on in the personal folio?
Yeah. So just this week, I started a record cabinet. So this one's going to be really interesting for a number of reasons, but it's kind of I don't know what, it's not mid-century, but it's kind of an organic, more of an organic modern style. So it's a little bit more curved you would see in something like a mid-century piece. But they want the vinyl record player, just to sit on top, which is fine. But they want almost all of it to be used for record storage. So it's got these two big drawers that are going to come out, and they've got some slatted coves that are going to be on the drawer front. So doing the whole coving technique on the table saw is a lot of fun. But then the cabinet door is going to have some old school electronics in it that produce a whole bunch of heat. So I've got to have the back perforated to have ventilation, and then the front door, they basically, the task they gave, it needs to be ventilated on both sides. So I was like, oh, we could do some caning on the door, which I've done some grass caning, but didn't want to do that. So I'm going to try essentially a way to kind of slat a raised panel door from both ends, but in a perpendicular fashion where those grooves go a little bit past halfway. So then where they intersect leaves a cutout, like a square in between those, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you two grooves this way and then two grooves on the back side of it running this way, leave a square. So that way you'll get air movement between them, and it would look somewhat like a checker pattern with a bit of kind of a vertical element to it.
That's
amazing.
really clever. I almost feel like you need to get the whiteboard out, but I like the way you're thinking. That's awesome.
All that.
I've designed it in Fusion, and so it looks good there, but it's one of those things where I'm just going to build some samples because I'm not exactly sure about the structural integrity of the door, which is still going to have a whole style and rail system around it, so it'll be sturdy enough, but I want to see how small is too small, and how big do I want the holes to be. But it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, so instead of caning, you're gonna be sort of creating a slightly thicker mesh out of, in my mind, it's like chopstick sized pieces of wood. Are we talking like 1/8 inch, 1/4 of an inch?
Well, it'll start off with a panel, and then you can use essentially like a kind of like a box joint jig where you have a dado blade, cut a groove, move it over, and you have some sort of reference pin that it hops on top of. And you keep on replicating that, and then you do it again, but you do it from the backside and perpendicular. And
Gotcha.
if those grooves are going past half the thickness, then they'll intersect.
Yeah. Sorry. Took me a second lap through it. That's
Like
rad.
Thing, yeah. And then you get to do all the fun things of, okay, I want to leave an inch and have the space between them be a 1/4 inch, or do I want it the other way, or do I want to go down to an 1/8 inch? So I'll probably end up making 3 or 4 samples of small portions of that door to figure it out what I like the best.
Very cool. And for the body of the cabinet and the panels, did your client decide on a species already at the beginning, or
They wanted white oak, but I pushed them away from that just because it's so expensive and it's not super good quality here in Austin. So it's going to be ash and then a little bit of walnut accents.
I literally just posted like yesterday of the record cabinet that I made, and my client wanted maple, but they wanted it stained, and it about killed me trying to stain maple. Yeah, multiple times did I have to like sand it all off and start over and be like, I just have to like finesse it a little bit more and get it just right. But yeah, it was, I mean, I loved the piece when it was done, but the staining maple, no. Nope.
Yeah. Wouldn't recommend it.
Nope.
In Texas, do you guys have the ash blight ripping through your part of the country right now as well?
Yes and no. It definitely is in the ash trees to begin with. So it's not wiping out, because my understanding is it usually happens when there's a bunch of them together from tree to tree. But if there's only one ash tree in a cul-de-sac or a block, then it doesn't spread as much. So I believe it is prevalent, but we just don't have a lot of ash trees. We have a lot of really terrible oaks and desert woods like pecans and stuff like that. They're mesquite, hard, drought-tolerant woods.
Yeah, you guys have your own very peculiar-looking Dr. Seuss oak tree down in Texas.
The live oaks, yeah.
It's not live oaks. Yes, the Dr. Seuss oak.
Sure. Absolutely terrible to work with as wood. A lot of the lumber yards won't take live oak logs. The grain is super gnarly. It's kind of a yellowish color. It's not even a good looking. It's not fun. Usually you'll see of a log and they'll call it a bench, and that's the end of the furniture with the live oak tree.
Do you know if it works when it's green versus when it's kiln dried?
I'm sure it probably would for some turning, for furniture. Probably.
Yeah, well, it's like the black locust and the Osage orange conundrum.
Yeah,
like the honey locust is fairly attractive on the inside. I will give it credit where credit's due. Like, it's got nice interlocking grain and beautiful contrast between heartwood and sapwood, and it can be very attractive. Black locust, I'm convinced, should actually just be fence posts. And it's so like burly and dense of a wood that I am convinced that if you buried a like green piece of black locust underground and then dug it up 10 years later, it would be the same vibrant color that it was before and would not have rotted. Like, it's a phenomenal wood for things like fence posts. But I don't know anybody who's like, you know what? I need a black locust stick chair.
Yeah. Maybe that could be your thing, your niche. You just nothing but black locust.
Yeah, it's not for me. No, I asked about ash blight though, because my parents had a pretty sizable ash tree come down this week. And so I got, I don't know, 5 feet of the first split. So there should be some fun figure in it and stuff like that. And it's sad processing trees that come down on your parents' lot, I guess, is sort of the moral of the story.
Yeah.
But the ash made me think of it.
Just make them a
and
bowl.
there you go. I'll remember the tree with the bowl.
Oh yeah. No, there's gonna be bowls like that. I can promise you. But
Yeah, the best wood that we have that's local is pecan for furniture, but the problem is it varies a lot in color, so it's, in my opinion, a bit distracting as a piece of furniture, but it can be really, really nice if you're doing something more like a conference table where the top is kind of separate from the base, and you can just get them massive slabs.
yeah, if pecan overdries, though, it becomes pecancrete, and I don't know how people work it without power tools. It is such a peculiar species. But if you flat stack your pecan while you're air drying it and it gets fungus inside of it, there's enough sugar content in it that the wood fungi goes crazy.
Mhm.
And I think spalted pecan is one of the more attractive woods
Yep.
that you can get fun spalting patterns in.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we're taking a step back to Dr. Sari's episode.
Okay, look, man, I love talking about trees and species and local stuff. And it sounds like you've got great relationships with your local lumber yards, right? Do any of them do the urban harvesting and dodging the metal in the trees and trying
sure.
to make something of it?
Yeah, one of our teachers owns Harvest Lumber Company, which is in East Austin, and they do all urban felled trees. So they work with the city and then developers and arborists that are trees that are coming down, and they find some super crazy stuff. Full circle into trees into Austin, and then we have post oak here in Austin, and post oak is kind of agreed to be the best wood for barbecue, which we also have the best of.
I feel like that's a debatable subject that if we were on a longer podcast, we could go round and round about that. But I am,
Yeah.
and you actually having spent some time in Kansas, you at least have reasonable comparison subjects.
Yeah, Kansas City barbecue is very good. I will say it's a little bit different. So it's not all apples to apples, but I think I prefer Texas barbecue over Kansas barbecue. But
that's a safe thing to say. No, you're in good company. You can say those
things.
It's
a safe space, right? I'm feeling comfortable now that we're.
Yeah, well, I'm in St. Louis, so we just go overboard with the molasses. Essentially, is how it works out, and everything has crust on the outside of it. But
yeah,
it's still really, really, really fun to put yourself into a diabetic pork ribs coma. Like that's like a St. Louis thing. You can even get St. Louis cut ribs, but we're a pork barbecue city, and I feel like Texas probably has beef barbecue really well done, really well executed is the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah, you can't beat a Texas brisket, and there's and it's more than Austin. It's the whole kind of central Texas area. There's a city called Lockhart, which just has amazing barbecue, and even in San Antonio, and there's some other places, and you start to get coast influences. You get a pretty big mixture of Tex-Mex barbecue into more northern styles, and even some Louisiana influences. So you get a lot of really kind of eclectic styles of barbecue, and a lot of it's made with post oak. So now you know.
Yeah, duly noted. No, there's a whiskey distillery out of Texas called Balcone, and one of their whiskeys is, I guess, got Texas scrub oak smoking on it. And I always found that the tasting notes on it, I think it's like part of the barrel char, kind of like from the winemaking standpoint, is charred with scrub oak, and the tasting notes on it to me always immediately came to like smoky barbecue flavored whiskey. So again, children under 21, don't heed this as a recommendation, but children over 21, if you can find a bottle of Balcone Brimstone from Texas, it is a wonderful varietal piece of whiskey to add to your collection if you're into that kind of thing.
There you go. Come down to the Texas Woodworking Festival and pick up a couple bottles of whiskey.
I feel like everybody wins.
I went to Austin for a work trip like 4 years ago, and I got the best Mexican food I've ever had, but I did not have brisket. I did not have barbecue. And now you're making me kind of mad that I didn't seek out barbecue.
There you go. We
So
have to come
I
back.
guess I'll
Yeah.
have to do that in September.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I can't wait. Okay, so we talked a little bit about a record cabinet. We've talked a little bit about furniture making. Is there anyone in particular, perhaps, who's also an active writer or columnist that you look up to as a furniture making role model, or somebody whose style you feel like is either influenced you in the past, or you feel like you're starting to emulate things that you liked and saw?
Interesting. I don't know if I have one particular. I still feel I am in a learning phase where I don't necessarily have my own style either, where I want to try other styles. So, there's a whole bunch of design books, there's green and green architecture, there's a Japanese architecture book where I'm just trying to take in as much knowledge and skills and styles as I can, and then kind of see what comes out the other side. So, after taking a class with Laura Kishimoto, who does a whole bunch of bit lamination, I've kind of gotten down onto a bit lamination kick for a while, and then I'll get to see another instructor come in that does some amazing veneer work, and I'll do some of that for a while. But yeah, I don't know if I found my style yet, and I'm not sure that I have one particular person. I mean, beyond kind of the normal Hans Wagner and kind of the whole mid-century and Scandi kind of styles that a lot of us like. But I'm still just kind of in that let's read as much as we can kind of phase.
Yeah. No, where are you, book? Right here. This is Mr. Schwartz's The Stick Chair book.
Yeah.
I really like the way he writes about woodworking. Like, it comes across as like prosaic poetry, but it's also like a history lesson, but it's also like a semi-technical instruction manual at the same time. It's a really unique book to ingest. I don't know if he's on a big tour because they just opened the Lost Art Press office in Lexington over there, and I know booking him is very difficult this year as he's on tour for a couple of other Renegades of Design books and stuff like that he's worked on. But man, if he's down there, just perchance, I'm gonna give him the biggest of high fives. That dude can write. Like, yeah, I don't know. Have you thumbed through his little stick chair book here yet?
I haven't, no, but I've heard good.
Oh, yeah, it is a love letter. It's wonderful. It'll make your heart swell to the size of 10 Austins plus 2.
Yeah, stairs are one of those things that I kind of put into the category of addictive drugs, where it's I probably shouldn't start unless I'm ready to deal with a bad habit forming. Where I love the idea of a Windsor chair, but you really need a whole separate set of tools and life stage to be able to jump into that form. I don't know that I'm quite ready for that, but at some point, then Windsor chairs, because once you get addicted to that drug, and it's just going to keep going.
Yeah, no,
TJ is definitely one of those. He's like, I just want to build chairs. I will be happy in life if I can just build chairs.
Yeah, I just want to build the chair every week and then try and sell it on a Saturday. And then hopefully, just be content doing that. But it's get your hands on that book somehow. Call him up. Call Mr. Schwartz up. Be like, hey, We need a copy for the school. And sorry, for those of you who aren't watching the video feed, there was the hardest wink you've ever seen that just took place there. But yeah, it looks so fun. And then because I read about chairs and the algorithm has me by the throat, I recently saw a reel where somebody was 3D printing compound angle drilling guides and then using them to not necessarily mass produce chairs, but to consistently reproduce compound angles to make assembly quicker, which I thought was really a novel use of a whole lot of different technologies. Like if you can essentially CNC out your chair base and most of your seat scoop, and then make tiny little registration pricks with your CNC to create alignment for your drilling guides and then get your compound angles drilled. That's like 40% of the hard thinking all put together for you. It was really unique. Perhaps I will send you a link if I stumble across it again.
Yeah,
And
no,
also,
I'd love to see
this
that.
is my friend TJ. He's obsessed with chairs.
I've
Hey,
heard.
I like
If you haven't noticed already. I do think it's really cool though. I mean, you're talking about projects and being like inspired by people, and I think that when it comes to like every single project, you're gonna take inspiration from something, whether that's a person that has built something similar or whatever. But I think that's a really cool part of the community is that when you come across something you're like, I want to build this, you can call on about 1,000 people and be like, hey, I'm stuck here, can you help me? So
For
I think
sure.
drawing inspiration from like all of these different friends is like a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, and I've been super blessed to be, either in the same room or assisting a lot of really talented woodworking instructors where I get to kind of be a fly on the wall and listen to them teaching the students and kind of take in that knowledge as well. So, just being able to hear other people talk about their techniques and how they learn has been really beneficial to me, for sure.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I love it.
Do you have any let's see here, we're getting close to our 50-minute mark where we take our victory lap through sponsors, but do you have any teachers who have come through the school that you feel like left a major imprint on you and the direction that you were taking your work or the school or just sort of your approach towards woodworking? Anybody really stand out for you?
Yeah. I think 2 teachers that we've had changed how I thought. And one I mentioned before was Laura Kishimoto. She's out of kind of the Denver area. And when you see her Instagram, you'll understand. But the types of jigs that she builds to get, a single angle on a piece of wood is insane because that piece is through a bent lamination. So, she'll design a form in Fusion or some other program, and then do the whole bent lamination, and then you cut an angled bridle joint on that particular thing, and then have a whole nother jig. But that jig attaches to the other mold, and now orients itself correctly, and that one's into this one, and you've got this transformer forming of all these different jigs and fixtures that kind of hold themselves together. That just kind of like, I've never really thought, like my brain just doesn't even think that way. It kind of was one of those things where exactly head exploding. When you think you don't know, the more you learn, kind of a thing. That was just really, really impressive. And then the other was the gentleman who teaches timber framing for us, comes down from Canada. His name is Patrick Moore. Patrick was a journeyman and studied a program in France to learn stereotomy, which is essentially kind of a drafting technique that allows you to organize complex angles without using trigonometry. And it's a kind of a way to draw out very, very detailed, usually a full scale plans of things in a very specific technique. Really, when you see, a roof, a traditional roof or structure that uses stereotomy, you see the drawings. They're beautiful in themselves and should be framed. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
We'll be at the Texas
Festival. Oh, he will be at a Texas Woodworking Festival. That's awesome.
That's amazing. That's exciting.
Yeah. Coming all the way down from to teach at the Texas Woodworking Festival. So hopefully all the timber framers and carpenters that want to learn stereotomy will come and learn Patrick.
Heck yeah. Of course.
So we are at about our 50-minute mark, which traditionally is where we take another quick lap through sponsors. The first of which is Surf Prep Sanding Systems. Their filtration, in addition to watching their dust collector burp the filters and keep the air flowing. Sure, it's nice for if you're sanding, but if you are on the construction or the painting side of things in this world, you may or may not know the joys of blowing drywall dust into one end and out the other of your dust collector. But it is reduced significantly with Surf Prep's dust collector. Go check it out at surfprep.com. The other one is, hey, we talk a lot about having a good night's rest and waking up refreshed and then looking in the mirror refreshed in that morning and seeing yourself in an oversized, extra soft Sawdust Talk t-shirt. And let me tell you, if you want one, they are available at kcbombshell.com. Also, one more time, boys and girls, Harvey is raffling off a 3-horsepower bad ass 15-inch bandsaw.
Nickel plated.
It does have the nickel plated top on it.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
I'm sold.
Yeah, it is a hot piece of kit, and you can get entered in the raffle for as little as $30 for a single entry. Let me tell you, getting that piece of kit for $30 delivered to your home is wonderful. Also, the proceeds of the raffle benefit fighting childhood cancer, which is shit. We can all just say it. It's horrible. And this is a really easy way to reap a reward for doing something nice for people who could use your help. And if getting a tax receipt for your taxes and your donations is a priority for you, they will give you one digital at the moment of donation, and then we'll also mail you one a few weeks later as well. So you can talk with your CPA about how your $200 donation to the Harvey raffle was both a business expense and a charitable donation. Figure that out between you and your CPA. I am not a tax expert. But that brings us to our final question. We do need to talk about Patreon/Sawdust Talk. But our final question is, every week we ask our guests to come up with a motivational thought or an idea or a phrase or something that gets you excited to pick up your tools or can help motivate our viewers and our listeners to kick open the door to their workshop, get in there, make a mess, or just get generally awesome. What would you like to share with the class?
I think I would tell everybody to make the community that you want to be a part of. A lot of times those woodworking communities don't exist. Find another person that wants to be a part of a woodworking club or woodworking school or woodworking event. Get them aboard, and between the two of you, 3, 4, make that community so you can keep talking about woodworking and grow that particular group in your area.
I love that. And I do want to say, TJ, I'm so glad that you said, what would you like to share with the class, being that, the woodworking school? Mm-hmm. That was kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Austin, we so appreciate your time tonight, and we really look forward to meeting you in person in Austin, in September. Can't wait for that. And TJ, why don't you take us out?
We will see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.